When my grandson told me he was too busy to pick me up from the airport after my hip surgery, I let it slide. But when I got home and found my truck, the one I'd restored with my own hands, missing from the garage, I knew something had snapped. 2 weeks later, they were begging for forgiveness, but by then the damage was done, and so was my plan. Before we dive deeper, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're tuning in from. The phone call came on a Sunday afternoon, just as I'd settled into my recliner with a book. My hip ached in that dull, nagging way it always did when the weather turned cold, but the worst of the post-surgery pain was behind me. I'd been looking forward to a quiet day, black coffee, a dog-eared mystery novel, and the ticking of the old wall clock I'd had since my army days. "Hey, Grandpa," Tyler's voice crackled through the receiver. My only grandson, 24 years old, a real estate agent in theory and a dreamer in practice. Tyler had inherited his father's smile, my son Paul's smile, but none of his work ethic. He was good at shaking hands, posting inspirational quotes on social media, and finding reasons why other people should help him get ahead. "Listen," he continued, "we can't pick you up next week. Busy with work and all. You can just take an Uber from the airport, right?" The "we" was his girlfriend, Kendra, a part-time yoga instructor with a full-time Instagram account. She'd been in the family for 2 years, and in that time I'd learned 3 things about her. She didn't eat anything that once had a face, she had an opinion about everything, and she had a talent for convincing Tyler that every bad idea of hers was actually his. I told him it was fine, even though my hip was still healing from the replacement surgery. I'd flown halfway across the country to visit my sister Linda in Florida for the first time in years. Linda had been my rock after my wife, Margaret, passed, calling every Sunday, sending care packages when I was too stubborn to admit I needed them. And now, after 2 weeks away, I was coming home, half excited to see the familiar snow on my driveway and the smell of pine in the air. I'd pictured Tyler standing there when I landed, waving from the driver's seat of my old Chevy, ready to help his grandfather with the luggage. Instead, I got this phone call. A casual brush-off, like I was a distant acquaintance asking for a ride. "You're too busy to pick me up?" I asked, my voice even. "Yeah, just swamped. And Kendra's teaching a weekend retreat." "You understand." I did understand, just not in the way he thought. I let a few seconds of silence stretch between us, listening to the faint background noise on his end, voices, laughter, the hiss of something cooking. It didn't sound like work. "That's fine," I said finally. "I'll figure something out." Tyler exhaled in relief, like he'd just avoided an argument. "Thanks, Grandpa. You're the best." We hung up, and I sat there staring at the phone. It wasn't the first time he'd disappointed me, but something about this one stuck under my skin. Maybe it was because I'd been there for him every time he called, when his first car broke down, when he and Kendra needed a loan for the condo deposit, when they forgot the rent check and came to me for help. I'd bailed them out so many times that it had become part of the unspoken family routine. "Grandpa will take care of it." I could still hear Margaret's voice from years ago, when Tyler was a boy. "He's got a soft heart, Earl. Just make sure it doesn't make him soft-headed." I thought I'd done my job. I thought I'd taught him respect and gratitude. But lately he talked to me the way people talk to customer service when they know they're getting a refund no matter what. The following evening, I called Paul, my son, his father. We'd had our share of differences over the years, but I thought maybe he'd knock some sense into Tyler. "I'll talk to him," Paul said, but his tone was distracted, rushed. "You know how young people are these days. They've got their own lives." "Yeah," I said, "but their lives seem to be built on mine." Paul chuckled like I was joking. "Don't take it personally, Dad." I ended the call quickly, realizing the problem ran deeper than I'd thought. This wasn't just Tyler acting entitled, this was learned behavior. By Friday, I'd put it out of my mind as best I could. The hip was healing slower than I liked, but I managed a short walk to the hardware store for some bolts I needed. I was looking forward to spending the weekend tinkering in the garage. That was when Frank called. Frank's my next-door neighbor, the kind of man who notices when your grass is an inch taller than usual or when a delivery truck stops at your place twice in the same day. He's not nosy, he just pays attention. "Earl, did you sell your truck?" he asked, voice low, like he didn't want to believe the words himself. The question sent a jolt through me, straight down my spine. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles ached. "What truck?" I asked, though my gut had already answered for me. "Your Chevy. The green one. It's not in your driveway anymore. Drove past 10 minutes ago, and the garage door was wide open." The world seemed to tilt for a second. That truck wasn't just metal and paint, it was a timeline of my life with Margaret. We'd bought it as a rusted-out Hulk for $600 the summer we moved into this house. I'd spent months in the driveway sanding down the body, replacing the engine, and cursing at bolts that wouldn't turn. Margaret used to sit out there in a lawn chair with a glass of iced tea, handing me wrenches like we were building something together, which, in a way, we were. We took that truck to the lake every August, Margaret riding shotgun with her bare feet up on the dash, singing along to whatever oldies station we could tune in. After she passed, the truck became more than just transportation. It was the last place I could still hear her laugh if I closed my eyes. I kept it polished, tuned, and ready, even when my hip made climbing into the cab a chore. Some things you don't give up on, because they're woven into who you are. And now Frank was telling me it was gone. My voice came out sharper than I intended. "You're sure?" "As sure as I am standing here," he said. "If you didn't sell it, Earl, then someone just took it." I ended the call without another word and hobbled out to the garage, my hip sending sharp warnings up my side with every step. The winter air hit me like a slap when I opened the side door. The garage was too quiet, too hollow. Even before I flipped the light on, I knew. The Chevy space was empty. The workbench still smelled faintly of the motor oil I'd used last month when I changed the filter. My set of sockets was exactly where I'd left it, each size in its proper slot. But the centerpiece of it all, the reason this garage even mattered, was gone. I stepped forward and my boots crunched on something. Looking down, I saw it, a single green paint chip, no bigger than a fingernail. The same forest green I'd picked out 20 years ago, the color Margaret said reminded her of pine trees after rain. I just stood there, staring at that tiny fragment on the concrete, and felt something break loose inside me. This wasn't just theft. This was the erasing of decades. Every fishing trip, every Saturday morning spent fixing the carburetor, every time Margaret had leaned over to kiss my cheek at a stoplight, it was all tied to that truck. And now it was sitting in someone else's driveway, maybe being driven by hands that didn't know its quirks, didn't care about its history. The grief came first, heavy and cold. Then the anger, slow, controlled, the kind that doesn't burn out quickly but stays, waiting for a target. I went back inside and sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where I taught Tyler how to balance a checkbook, back when I thought he'd grow into a man who respected the value of things. My hand shook as I reached for the phone, but my voice was steady when I dialed his number. He answered on the third ring, casual as anything. "Hey, Grandpa. What's up?" "Where's my truck, Tyler?" There was a pause, long enough to confirm what I already knew. "Oh," he said finally. "Yeah, about that." I didn't say a word. Silence is a weapon if you know how to use it. After a few seconds, he started talking faster. "Kendra and I needed a little quick cash for the condo down payment. We figured we could sell the truck, since you weren't really using it much. And I mean, come on, Grandpa, it's just sitting there most of the time." "It's mine," I cut in, my voice low enough to make him stop mid-sentence. "Well, yeah, but..." "No. There's no but here, Tyler. That truck wasn't yours to touch, let alone sell." He sighed like I was being unreasonable. "We were going to tell you. I just, didn't want to make a big deal out of it. We got a good price too, 12 grand. The guy even said he's gonna put new rims on it. 12 grand. That truck was worth twice that to a collector, and 10 times that to me. You sold 20 years of my life for 12 grand, I said, my tone steady but sharp enough to cut glass. Grandpa, you're making it sound worse than it is. We'll make it up to you. Once the commission checks start rolling in, You'll what? Buy me another truck. Replace the one your grandmother and I rebuilt together. The one she called her second home. He didn't answer. I could almost hear him looking over at Kendra, waiting for her to feed him his next line. This is family, Grandpa, he tried, his voice a little softer now. We're all just trying to help each other get ahead. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Funny. In my experience, when people talk about helping each other, they usually mean help me. Look, it's done, he said, slipping back into that careless tone. We can't undo it now. You'll understand eventually. We're building a future here. Enjoy it while it lasts, I said, and hung up. For a long moment I sat there in the quiet, the phone still in my hand. My pulse was steady now. The grief had cooled, the anger had settled into something sharper, cleaner. He thought it was done. He thought he'd gotten away with it. But that truck's title was still in my name. And I knew exactly where to start. The title was still in my filing cabinet, tucked neatly between the deed to my house and my military discharge papers. Margaret used to tease me about my old man's paperwork fortress, but right then, I was grateful for every sheet of it. I pulled the manila folder marked vehicles and set it on the table. There it was, signed, notarized, and dated. No transfer, no lien, no loophole. That Chevy was mine in the eyes of the law, no matter whose driveway it sat in. I jotted down the license plate, the VIN number, and the buyer's contact info from the bill of sale Tyler had carelessly emailed me last year when he thought he might help sell it to an enthusiast. It had been a stupid idea then, but now it was my lever. I made 3 calls that afternoon, one to my friend Mike in the police department's motor vehicle unit, one to the DMV, and one to Frank to see if he'd be home later to help me with something important. By the time the sun went down, the first pieces of my plan were in motion. The truck would be back in my driveway by the end of the week. But that wasn't enough. I wanted Tyler to understand exactly what it felt like to have something you loved taken without your say. The next evening, just as I was tightening the last bolt on the snow blower in the garage, my phone rang. Tyler. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, it rang again. And again. Finally, I answered, my tone as neutral as a bank teller's. Grandpa, he said, all false warmth, I've been thinking. I feel bad about the truck thing. Really. I was impulsive, and I know it meant a lot to you. Silence from my end. So, he continued, I wanted to make it up to you. Kendra and I picked out something we think you'll really enjoy. There was rustling, then a click as a photo came through to my phone, a cheap metal keychain shaped like a little truck, with number 1 Grandpa engraved on the side. The kind of thing you'd get for $7 at a gas station. You know, he said, forcing a laugh, for your keys, once you get another truck. Thought it might help, you know, start fresh. I stared at the picture. He thought a trinket could replace 20 years of memories. He thought that if he wrapped it in the word Grandpa, it would erase the theft. Tyler, I said slowly, you've given me exactly what I needed. There was a pause. Really? Yes, I said. A reminder of why you'll never get the chance to take from me again. Before he could answer, I hung up. The call had confirmed something important. He still thought I was hurt, but not dangerous. That would make the next part even easier. 2 mornings later, I was standing in the condo parking lot with Mike from the motor vehicle unit. The air was sharp and cold, the kind that makes your breath look like steam. Mike held a clipboard and wore the half-smirk of a man who enjoys his work a little too much. Titles clean, Earl. Registered to you and only you. This'll be quick. Tyler's Chevy, my Chevy, was parked 2 rows over, wedged between a rusted Honda and a dented SUV. It looked out of place, like a thoroughbred surrounded by farm mules. Even with the cheap aftermarket rims the buyer had slapped on, it still carried the lines and the paint that Margaret had once traced with her fingertips. Mike waved over the tow truck driver, who backed in with surgical precision. I didn't take my eyes off the Chevy as the winch groaned and lifted her onto the flatbed. Halfway through, the condo door banged open. Tyler came jogging toward us in pajama pants, hair sticking up in all directions, Kendra trailing behind in a robe. "What the hell are you doing?" he shouted. "Taking back what's mine," I said, calm as still water. "You sold it." I told the guy. "You tried to sell it," I corrected. "But you never owned it, Tyler. That truck has my name on every line that matters. Legally, it never left me. And now it's coming home." Kendra crossed her arms, glaring. "This is ridiculous. We already spent the money." "Then I suggest you figure out how to replace it," I said, my voice dropping just enough for her to lean back. "Because you're about to have more expenses." Tyler's face went pale. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I said, stepping closer so he had to look up at me, "that the bank has been sending me copies of your condo payments for months. You used my co-signature to get this place, and I've been covering more of it than you realize. Not anymore. By the end of this month, the only thing you'll own here is the debt." For a moment, he just stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like he was drowning. Then the tow truck pulled away, the Chevy glinting in the winter sun as it rolled out of the lot. I didn't watch him. I didn't need to. Back home, I guided the Chevy into the garage like an old friend returning from a long journey. I shut the door and ran my hand along the hood. "You're home now," I murmured, and for a second, just a second, I swear I could hear Margaret laughing in the passenger seat again. That evening, I sat in the recliner with the garage light still glowing faintly through the side window. The Chevy was parked inside, safe, her engine still warm from the drive home. The smell of old leather and motor oil lingered in my hands, and for the first time in weeks, my chest felt lighter. I poured a small glass of the good bourbon Margaret used to save for special occasions and set it on the table beside me. Outside, snow had started to fall, soft, deliberate flakes settling over the neighborhood like a fresh start. Tyler hadn't called again. Maybe he finally understood, or maybe he was just busy scrambling to patch the hole I'd left in his finances. Either way, the silence suited me fine. I leaned back, listening to the grandfather clock tick in the hallway, and let my eyes drift toward the garage. In my mind, I could see Margaret's bare feet on the dash, hear her voice humming along to some old tune as we rolled down a back road in August.
Hello everyone, and thank you for watching. I truly hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel to help support the creation of more stories like this. Have a great day or evening.